The 2020 NFL Draft is 2 years into their professional careers, and in today's video we are going to be taking a look back at the class and how they have performed over those said 2 years. This has been a highly requested video to grade the second round, and what I want to preface this with is the grades are going to be significantly more lenient with second round picks than the first round, and there are 16 picks to dive into for today's video, so without further ado, let's begin. And we are starting with the 48th overall pick, and we'll be working down to the 33rd pick, which means we are starting today's video with Darrell Taylor of the Seattle Seahawks. I wasn't the biggest fan of the Darrell selection at the time because I thought it was a little bit of a reach, and not like a 4th or 5th round prospect, just a slight reach for Seattle, and Darrell missed his entire rookie season, and as a former second round pick heading into 2021, he had to step up after missing all 16 games to prove he was worth the investment of a former second round pick, and Darrell did exactly that for Seattle. He had 6.5 sacks and 13 quarterback hits this past year, and I don't want to say this is an A+ second round pick yet, but if he has a good 2022, it very well could be. For now, after a promising second season, Darrell gets an A-. Marlin Davidson, a defensive tackle from Auburn, was the Falcons' second round pick that year, and in 2 years he has 29 total tackles. Now, it is important to note it usually takes defensive tackles a year or 2 or sometimes 3 to develop, and we saw better play from him in year 2 than we did in his rookie year. Now, that's also not to say that Marlin is on this home run grand slam trajectory or anything, but I do think Marlin will play better in the next 2 years than he did in his first 2. Also, a fun fact, he had a pick 6 from Tom Brady as a man over 300 pounds, and it was a 3-yard pick 6, but still, how many people can actually say that in the world? I do think his grade will improve over the next 2 years, but for now it is a D+. Broncos receiver KJ Hamler was picked prior to Davidson, and this is a player who has had horrific injury luck in his first 2 years. He had a hamstring injury in year 1, and hamstring injuries usually linger, and a 3-week injury usually lasts at least 6 or 7, which equates to nearly half the season, and they're generally bad news. And if that's not enough, he tore his ACL in 2021, and here's to hoping he gets back on track in 2022. As of now, he has 35 catches for 455 yards and 3 touchdowns to his name, and the good news for KJ is Russell Wilson is now his quarterback. The bad news is it's a very crowded receiver room, and we don't know how often he will see the football. For now, it's an incomplete draft grade. Safety Antoine Winfield Jr. to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers was number 45 overall, and this has proved to be a draft steal over the first few years of his career. From getting Tyreek Hill back with the peace sign in the Super Bowl, to being a Pro Bowler in his second year, and to having the iconic moment with his dad after the Super Bowl in his rookie season, Antoine has 182 tackles, 5.5 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, and 3 interceptions, and will continue to be a good player for them in what will hopefully be his second Super Bowl ring in 3 years. An A+ grade for the Winfield Jr. selection. Former LSU safety Grant Delpit went to the Browns at number 44, and Delpit had a huge draft slide because heading into the 2019 season, he was projected to be an early first-round pick. Grant unfortunately missed his entire rookie season due to a torn Achilles, but had a solid second year as he racked up 66 tackles, a sack, a forced fumble, and a quarterback hit. And like Darrell Taylor was mentioned earlier, I love his potential and hope he has a good second full season starting in what could be a good young Browns secondary. For now, a B+ with the potential to skyrocket in his 3rd NFL season. Next is a player I have seriously high hopes for in Bears tight end Kmet, and in 2 seasons, Kmet has 88 total receptions for 855 yards and 2 touchdowns. Cole had 60 catches this past year, along with 612 yards, and the long-term hope right now is that he can have a good connection with what will be current second-year quarterback Justin Fields. A 60-catch season in the offense they were in 2021 is nothing short of encouraging for his future, and I do believe the Bears have a future starter for at least the next 5 to 6 years, if not longer. Unfortunately, he only has 2 touchdowns at the moment, but that should improve with time. An A grade on the Kmet selection. Prior to the Cole Kmet selection was Laviska Shenault for the Jags, and statistically Laviska isn't too bad as he has 121 catches for 1,219 yards and 5 touchdowns. I don't think Laviska is as bad as a player as social media makes him out to be, as he's not this complete scrub for lack of a better word, but there are better players than him. Now, I'd like to see him in a Cordero Patterson type role, as I think that's how he could be maximized, and we will see how he plays in year 3 and year 4. Laviska through 2 years has an average of 60 catches and 600 yards per year, and through 2 years, we give this selection a B. Jonathan Taylor, one of the players on today's thumbnail, is up, and in 2 years, JT has over 3,600 total yards and 32 total touchdowns to his name, along with a first-team All-Pro and a Pro Bowl this past year. Whenever teams draft a running back in the second round, this is what they strive for. A productive player and a player who they can lean on for a few years, and he has been a great player for Indy thus far. Taylor is an extremely tough player to defend, and this is an A+ selection. Ross Blacklock for the Houston Texans is up, and this is the pick that was used for the Arizona Cardinals to acquire receiver DeAndre Hopkins. And Ross in 2 years has 36 total tackles to his name, and I always felt bad for whoever this pick was because of the insurmountable expectations you'd have. At least for Ross, you can say the whole franchise is bad, and it's not solely because of this trade that they are where they are, but Ross has not been this franchise-changing difference maker. Not horrific either, but for a top 40 pick, this gets a C. Robert Hunt, the guard from Louisiana, was the 39th overall pick, and there were a lot of eyebrows raised when they made this pick because of taking a lineman this early from a non-Power 5 school, and a guard at that. And while Hunt hasn't been this top 2 or 3 guard, he has been a solid football player and certainly worth the 39th overall pick. He was a bright spot on the Dolphins' offensive line and should be a starter for a considerable amount of time. An A grade for the Hunt selection. Yetur Gross-Matos from Penn State was the Panthers' second-round selection, and this was a great value selection for them because Gross-Matos was consistently mocked in the top 25 picks all throughout the draft process. Brian Burns has been a beast for the Panthers during his time there on the other side, and Hassan Reddick stepped up big this past year. I do think Gross-Matos can be a big breakout player, but for a player who has 6 sacks and 10 quarterback hits in 2 years, we give this a C+. Kyle Duggar, the safety from Division II Lenoir-Rhyne, was the Patriots' second-round selection, and this was used from the Chargers trade-up to get linebacker Kenneth Murray, if you were wondering why the Patriots are selecting here so early in the second round. And Duggar has been very productive for the Patriots, and the gamble on a D2 player that early was certainly worth it, and it's an A+ grade for Kyle Duggar. Safety Xavier McKinney from Alabama went to the New York Football Giants, and despite how rough it's been for them over the past few years, McKinney himself has been a very, very bright spot for them, and I am eager to see how he performs in Wink Martindale's defense, and his potential is sky high. The production as of now isn't the elite of elite from a safety, but it's certainly also not the worst, and it's far closer to being great than what it is bad, and 2 years later, McKinney gets an A. In 2 years, Deandre Swift has amassed 1,947 yards of total offense and 17 total touchdowns in 26 games. He obviously isn't a bad player, but we discussed Jonathan Taylor earlier, and it simply would not be fair to give Deandre and JT the same grade because, well, we can't. There's over 1,000 yards difference between the two, and about 20 touchdowns for that matter. And I do think Deandre can be better statistically than what we've seen from him, and I hope he stays healthy because his talent is undeniable. And it's honestly close to an A to A+ talent. For now, though, we give this grade a B+. Michael Pittman Jr. was the second pick of the second round and turned in his first of hopefully many 1,000-yard years in 2021. I loved the selection of Pittman at the time for the Colts, and he's proved to be well worth the investment of an early second-round pick. And credit Michael because he's going to have his third quarterback in 3 years, and he's been productive all throughout these years. And I hope him and Matt Ryan have a good connection, and I do think Michael can start his career with 2 1,000-yard seasons out of 3. And 2 years later, we give this an A. T. Higgins, the Bengals receiver, was the first pick of the second round in 2020, and in 2 years, he has 141 receptions for 1,999 yards, that's not a mistake, and 12 touchdowns. He has had an impressive start to his career, and what I want to be known about T is his teammate Ja'Marr Chase is in the top 0.01% of players. And having said that, T is a great football player, and the Bengals have a great starting player for the next decade, in Higgins that is, and Ja'Marr too, but for T specifically here, yes. He's just not in the top 0.01 like Ja'Marr is, and fellow 2020 draftee Justin Jefferson were, and those guys are in the A++ tier, and it's hard to compete against them. Make no mistake though, the connection between Joey B and T. Higgins will only get stronger, and given they are each in their 20s and T being just 23, I hope we see the maximization of this over the next 10 years, and through 2 years, T gets an A+ grade. And with that being said, that's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, now is the time I ask you to please leave a like and subscribe to the channel, as it would truly mean the world. And until next time, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.